Okay, I didn't really think we would be making 2 videos on Alexander Romanov in the span of a day, but I didn't realize that this actually happened, and so I think it ignites a completely other topic that we hadn't really explored before all too much when it comes to the Alexander Romanov trade and the acquisition of Kirby Dach. So, if you are unaware, we did make a few videos talking about what happened. Kirby Dach, former Chicago Blackhawks' 3rd overall pick, is now a Montreal Canadien. You also have yourselves Alexander Romanov, a defenseman, a Russian guy, a big physical guy, who went out there and got traded over to the Islanders in what was essentially a multi-trade level plot right there for the Canadiens to acquire Dach. We made a video about that yesterday. Go ahead and check it out. Romanov is gone from the organization. However, the reason we're making this video today is because on the Puck Empire Instagram account, this is an Instagram page that has, how many followers do they have? 100,000 followers. So they're a pretty fair and popular platform when it comes to hockey news and rumors and all that stuff. They posted a graphic from 3 days ago, during the actual NHL draft, saying that, hey, the Canadiens have traded Romanov and 98th overall to the Islanders for 13th overall, and this was, of course, the first series of moves that was done before the Dach trade was announced, and then before the rest of the draft picks were announced as well. However, the top comment on this post from Puck Empire on Instagram says, Jesus Christ, with a little facepalm emoji right there. The person who commented this post was none other than Mikhail Sergachev. Now, the reason this is hilarious is because Mikhail Sergachev is another Montreal Canadiens drafted prospect, a Russian defender, a big guy, not necessarily as physical as Romanov, but also a talented player, who also got traded from the Montreal Canadiens before really breaking out. Now, going over the scouting report here, I guess a lot of people might be quick to point out, oh yeah, Romanov for Dach is pretty much Sergachev 2.0. We might see what happened with McDonough with this entire transaction here. It's going to be Mikhail Sergachev Part 2. Let's go over that idea, because we actually did have a few people in our live stream for the draft saying similar sentiments as well, that, oh, they're going to regret this because this is just going to be Sergachev for Drouin number 2, and by the way, we're going to get into Drouin as this video goes along as well. But Mikhail Sergachev was initially a Montreal Canadiens drafted prospect, 9th overall in 2016. Right now, he's 24 years old, 6'3", 216 as a left-handed defenseman. He's got 1 year left at $4.8 million a season. Now, because he plays for Tampa Bay, he is a back-to-back Stanley Cup champion and 3-time Stanley Cup finalist. He had 38 points in 78 games this most recent season. Unfortunately, though, he has not been able to match his career high of 40 points, which he achieved in 79 games back in 2017-2018. Now, to be fair to Sergachev, he was 20 years old when he made that season happen, and a lot of people were saying, oh, this guy's an absolute stud. What the heck did the Montreal Canadiens do in giving up on this guy? He is a Russian defenseman that can score, he can man a power play, etc., etc. Even though he hasn't necessarily grown point production-wise since then, he still is a capable defender, and he is pretty solid on that Tampa blue line. In return for Mikhail Sergachev, the Montreal Canadiens, when they traded this player away back in, when the heck was that trade actually made here? Let's go to the transaction page here. 2017, June 15th, the Montreal Canadiens acquired Jonathan Drouin from the Tampa Bay Lightning in exchange for that Sergachev. Now, Drouin today is 27 years old, 6 feet 203 as a left-handed player. He's making $5.5 million a season till the end of next year. Like Kirby Dach, Jonathan Drouin was a 3rd overall pick. Drouin was 3rd overall in 2013, Dach was 3rd overall in 2019. Drouin, though, has not really ever broken out past what he did in his prime year in 2018-19, where the guy had 53 points in 81 games played. Now, I get it, he had a 53-point season as well in 2017 in 73 games played, so a much better point-per-game number there. But for Drouin, it's so strange seeing just how his point production tanked over the past few years, how his goal production tanked over the past few years. This guy went from scoring 18 goals in 81 games played to scoring 2 goals in 44 games in the span of 2 years. Now, this recent season, he had 6 goals in 34 games, 14 assists for 20 total points. That's a pretty good point per game number, all things considered. Let's do 20 divided by 34, multiplied out by 82, and you could see that Drouin was on pace for 48 points on the season. Still not a career high, but definitely a lot better than what he did last year. But for Jonathan Drouin, he has been kind of the subject of a lot of Canadiens' criticism over the past few years, mostly due to, I'm going to say, compatibility issues with line mates, plus people were questioning his work ethic, etc. That kind of all went away when we learned of some of the other things that Jonathan Drouin was dealing with behind the scenes. But for Drouin, I guess it's really fair to say that he did not live up to the hype in Canadiens fan lore comparative to what Sergachev did for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, of course, Sergachev played for the Tampa Bay freaking Lightning, and he isn't really the reason they won 2 Stanley Cups, but he definitely was a part of that team when they did that. So for today, a lot of people can look at Sergachev for Drouin and say, okay, value for value, the players that were swapped and what they became after the draft, or not the draft, but the trade, you could definitely say that Montreal, quote-unquote, lost. Now, the question is whether or not Romanov and Dach, this Part 2 version of the Canadiens trading away a Russian defenseman for a 3rd overall Canadian kid who had been underperforming on his previous team, is this trade, Romanov for Dach pretty much, going to work out the same way? Now, it's a little different because Romanov did not go to the team that Kirby Dach came from. He went to the Islanders. Kirby Dach came from the Blackhawks. But at the same time, it doesn't really take a genius to say, okay, well, you can still track the progress of Romanov in Long Island, see how he does, which is what the entire video we made about yesterday went over. I do think that Romanov has a lot more potential at the NHL level. He's already a pretty all-right defensive player and a good physical beast. It's just going to be a question as to whether or not his offense is really going to translate, because as we had seen in prior seasons with the World Juniors and all that, he can play offensively. It's just in Montreal, you didn't really see all too much of that, unfortunately, which is kind of why he ended up getting traded, plus the logjam of defenders the Canadiens have at their disposal regardless. But for Kirby Dach going over to Montreal, I just hope that my gut is correct here, because my gut says that Kirby Dach is going to become an absolute stud. We can make a video talking about him later in the week, comparing him to Ryan Getzlaf, because there's that entire what happened scenario too. The NBC comparisons are still going to continue on this channel, so don't worry if you're paying attention to that series and you want to see more. But Dach is going to be one of the next ones on the chopping block. We're going to talk about him and his profile. I just really do hope that he lives up to everything he was supposed to be, because as a guy who's only 21 years old, I mean, he does have a lot more runway to grow. For Jonathan Drouin, he was, 2018, 2017 when he came over to Montreal? So back then, that was, 5 years ago? He was 22. So Jonathan Drouin was just a tad older when he went to Montreal versus when Kirby Dach was going to Montreal. So for Drouin, I mean, of course, he had a lot more down years, but at the end of the day, we definitely acknowledge that he didn't progress in the way that a lot of Canadiens fans would have wanted him to, especially after that 50-point campaign in 2018-19. But either way, talk in the comments all your thoughts about Romanov and the Sergachev comments on Instagram, the fact that he's like, oh, Jesus Christ, they did it again, eh? They did it again. They traded away another Russian defenseman. All the replies to this Sergachev comment are hilarious. Everyone's like, LMAO, something, something. Oh, it's part 2 of the draft, yada, yada, yada. Like, whew, man, tough. Tell me in the comments all your thoughts. How do you think Kirby Dach is going to do? How do you think Romanov is going to do with the Islanders? Do you think Romanov is going to break out with Lou Lamoriello's team in the same way that Sergachev did with the Lightning? And do you think Kirby Dach is set to go down the same 3rd overall curse that a lot of these Montreal Canadiens in recent years have gone through? You have Drouin, you have Jesperi Kotkaniemi. These guys come in here, they don't really perform all too greatly comparative to expectations. Is Kirby Dach next in line? Let me know in the comments all your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.